Um, I guess the recording is in progress. Okay, there you go. All right, everybody, hope you could hear me okay, and welcome to the show that never ends, as they say. Um, let's see. First of all, I wanted to talk to everybody about next Friday is the Friday of Thanksgiving. I suspect a lot of people will either be on holiday or out shopping or whatever, that kind of thing. Do you want to still meet? And like we could still meet if something major has come up in the meantime, but doubting that, we can maybe just take a bye week. Does everybody agree with that, or anybody desperately want to see me again next Friday after Thanksgiving? That sound good? All right. Seeing no objections, I'll probably send out a meeting notice next week because it'll be on your calendars. But I may just send out an email saying, yeah, we've decided to cancel it. So I may do it on Thursday night, etc. So I think that's a good plan. Then they'll join up again. So I like the discussion last week about we probably will try to, I have to still work out the details with Angus about having fellows on and having them do the presentation for you guys, right? Maybe once a month. It'll be kind of fun to get them in there, but hopefully you'll be there with them to back up and add or correct anything they say, but at least gives them an opportunity to sort of get on there. And occasionally, if they have a good thing to present, we'll have them present, just like the thing that Ben is doing with his folks to have them write up these articles that we're doing for EMS World. And that's been a terrific concept, I think, to integrate them into what we're doing and have them get to know us so we can be of help to them as well. So, all right, let me just get great. So let's start off with that very issue and go right over to Ben, because Ben, do you know, are any of the recent articles like we did on the postpartum thing, is that coming out? Have you heard anything about that?
I've not gotten responses to any of my emails, so I've maybe emailed
Okay.
them 3 times. I can try again.
Yeah, I guess I'll try to call Josh today and all that, because that I think those are important things. What I'm going to do when it comes out, and therefore we could set it around to everybody. I want to have you do a kind of a re-presentation, and then Amal Matu has a really good follow-up to that. That's kind of a nice integrates very well with the work you did. So that's what I was planning to do, is have those two things happen. And then also Ken Shepke, as we talked about last week, just had his article published about creating, sort of a remission of long COVID with certain interventions. And I want to have him present it. So I think he can't do it today because he's in a meeting, but we'll have him do it maybe next week as well. And if any of you out there have a small presentation of some sort that you would like to do, I want to do that. So we do have a little bit more of some formal kind of educational programs. Although every week, I learn from everybody as it moves on. And I apologize for the I think it's a lunch break here or something like that. So apologize for the background noise. So let's go ahead and start off, since he's got to be off in half an hour, with our Milwaukee medical director and county health advisor, Ben Weston. And Ben, you wanted to have an interrogation going out, no, a survey going out to all the Eagles, and then it'll be coming out pretty soon, I think. So I just want everybody to have a heads up on it, talk about why you want to do it and what's the benefits for everybody else to learn about this.
Yeah, and so just real quick, circling back to the EMS World, we are working on another one now, so hopefully they're still interested, even though they haven't published the last. But I can shoot you an email about that.
Okay, good.
Either way, yeah. So the survey is about encryption of radio communications. So I think for all systems, there's kind of at least two things that we all have in common, which is somehow your providers need to talk to the hospital to give a report, or at least need to give a report to the hospital. And I think for pretty much all systems, somehow providers need to talk to online medical control, whether that's a medical director or an academic practice or a private, whatever it is. And so I think in each system, those happen in a variety of ways. This is what the survey will get at. Is it radio? Is it cell phone? Is it, your EHR sends it to the hospital through health information exchange, different things. But I think a lot of us rely on radio. And so one issue that's come up in our system is encrypting the radios. It turns out it's not cheap at all. But it's something we've considered. And what the survey will get at is whether others encrypt, because you can get a lot of patient information through that, especially if you have a high profile patient. If, celebrity X is in town and everybody knows that they, whatever, fell off the stage, somebody can just listen to the scanner and hear all their medical details, their medical history, all that sort of stuff, depending on what's shared over the radio. So it's something we're kind of trying to figure out, but I was curious to learn the landscape of other systems.
Okay, anyone
I think-
want to throw out a comment about that?
Yeah, we encrypt. We have selected hospital channels, but everything's encrypted so that the hospital can receive our call, but that's it.
How do you do online medical control? Is it just phone call to medical director?
It's done via that encrypted radio
Oh, it is,
transmission
okay.
to medical control.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So part of
Did
it,
you-
you're saying that one of the issues that comes up is part of it is not just the public at large, but more importantly, the media who do track a lot of that stuff. So, which is an interesting aspect of that. Just as a comment, John, you said you don't encrypt up there in Portland. Any comment
Yeah,
on-
that's correct, Paul and Ben. We found encryption to be problematic at time. We use a 800 megahertz branch system like most of you do. We actually had three things. Number one, sometimes there was people with the wrong radio can't hear anything. The second one was the radio quality. And the third one is the widespread availability of our cell phone, which is much more secure than the other one. And finally, encryption, if you actually have a radio that's stolen, you lose all the security here as well. So I think encryption has its own problems. Our tactical teams encrypt, but our tactical medics have those police radios.
I have a quick comment regarding encryption.
No, go ahead, and then we'll go to Ben next, okay? And I also, and Don, I'll try to get you in before you have to leave, maybe in about 5 minutes, okay? Thanks. But go ahead, Peter, then Ben.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of trialing Zoom for encryption. So with Zoom, you can create an account and you can add all your medical directors, and it'll be like medical director one has extension 100, one has extension 101. So it's the same number, multiple extensions. And when you call that extension, you just click on the number and it dials up. As soon as the phone answers, it says, this call is being recorded. And in the settings, you just click on end-to-end encryption and it's completely encrypted. I would recommend that Zoom account be owned by the entity, right? So like I wouldn't make it the Ben Weston personal Zoom account. It would be, whatever your entity is. And that's what I would recommend if you're thinking about it. It's a good
Then,
system.
of course, lends it to public scrutiny as needed, if it has to be that. But either way, I agree with you. That's the way you got to do it. Nick, what do you want to say? Nick?
Going to add that in Minneapolis, during the unrest, we were ground zero for a lot of things. And we could see that not only the EMS, but the law enforcement radios were being actively listened to by everybody. So I think when they're not encrypted, it is public knowledge, which has kept us from allowing a lot of PHI over the radio. And I think that is, left us with some decreased fidelity. So we're exploring it. We're planning on encrypting, but it's just not happened yet.
Yeah. So there's other comments in the chat you can see, such as John making a good point that about online medical control and all that kind of stuff. And then Peter, Ben is asking if you use the encrypted Zoom for hospital and online medical control comms, both.
No, not for hospitals. The hospitals have they have their own system where you have to call. If you call to the hospital for anything, you have to call into the transfer line, and the transfer line automatically records that. So this is strictly an EMS item.
Okay. Well, anyways, part of this, I am going to go to David Miramontes next, but part of this is I wanted to get the discussion going because when Ben wrote up his survey questions, which were fine. I mean, they're good. I need to put in perspective that we're going to need a lot of commentary on that. Okay. And I want to make sure we understood what we were looking for. And then but it's going to require your local commentary as well. But so be prepared, Ben, okay, that you'll have to, because it's a lot more complicated than just yes or no kind of thing, right? So, okay, David Miramontes, are you on the phone or can you talk? We're not hearing you yet.
I can hear you. All right. So
Okay,
I was going to
yeah.
do a shameless plug.
Yeah,
We
okay.
use Pulsera. So
Yeah.
that is a great platform. It's an encrypted Zoom platform. It's recorded. It's easy for the medics to do. And you can add in, so you can go from medic to hospital. You can put a doctor in the middle, consult teams. You can toggle on, like I have different teams for different service lines, for OPCR, for hospice, for the Haven, whatever. And you can toggle on off who's on call. Barry, it's free for EMS. I'm going to say that again. It's free for EMS agencies and for the ER. But if you're going to use the other features to go up into the hospital or feedback, then the hospital has to pay. And it's cheap. It's like a rounding error in a hospital's budget. I mean, seriously. So we have been using the Pulsera platform for all kinds of things. We use it for telemedicine during COVID, for the monoclonals. We use it for all of our transfers throughout the state. And the state of Texas bought the platform for everybody just so we could use it for disasters. So if you're interested, it's really inexpensive. Look up Pulsera online, tell them I sent you, and you'll be good to go.
David, and maybe Paul, can I make a quick comment on that? Is that the state of Florida just kind of R&D your concept?
Yep.
I would highly recommend that you figure out a way to have Pulsera come in on a statewide level, because it's a regional communication tool, and going agency by agency is not a good thing. So we are going to be going live hopefully by Q1.
Right.
So I would recommend that people talk to Pulsera about a statewide deployment like you guys did and we're doing here.
So Ben, the way you can get this funded is through your disaster response funding, because you can use it as your replacement for triage tags and tracking. So it's real simple. You just scan the patient, start a new patient, scan their wristband or their triage tag, take pictures of their face, what's wrong with them, move. They're red, yellow, green, black. So it's a great little platform. It's mobile. There's a hospital module. I can't say enough about it. It's a great little system.
Cool. Thanks.
And I said the word free. Yeah.
Free to EMS, right? It's hospital.
Free to EMS. Hospitals, if they're going to use it for stroke alerts, trauma alerts, cardiac alerts, whatever, up, they have to pay for it for that feedback loop. But it's going to integrate with Antevi. It's going to integrate with Pulsera. It's going to integrate with ImageTrend. It's a great platform, and a paramedic runs it. So it's a great little, very, very intuitive platform. Oh, I didn't tell you. So the engine can start a Pulsera, and they can take a picture of the EKG. They can upload the EKG. They can take a picture of a driver's license scans. And then the engine can hand off to the medic, which can hand off to the registration clerk in the ER, so they can be pre-registered before they get there. And on the dashboard in the hospital, it shows medic 1, ETA 5 minutes, medic 2, ETA 10 minutes, medic 3, ETA 12 minutes. So they know exactly what hospital ambulances are on the way and what's wrong with them. And it unclogs the radio room dramatically. So I can't tell you, it's a great little project.
Who else is using Pulsera?
So Texas statewide, we have multiple states, I believe. I'll have to go get on the website to see. I have no financial clicks with Pulsera, by the way. So it is a nationwide product, and it's working very well for disaster.
I think Colorado is going statewide. I believe Arkansas is going statewide. And yeah, that's what I know so far, and not Florida, thanks to the folks at the state.
So one other thing, I'm sorry, I got shoved off. I don't know what happened here. I think the internet went down in the hotel. But anyways, what I want to say is that I want to move over to Don Jenkins quickly. But one of the things that Don broke up, I remember is true, is WhatsApp is supposed to be encrypted. Anybody have any, do you want to come on and talk about that, Don?
Yeah, we use WhatsApp for quite a number of things. There is an unofficial group of folks that includes Surgeon General of the Israeli Defense Forces and Thor members that correspond using that application with some regularity. And because it's worldwide, it really is accessible to everyone.
So the only caveat is that it's not HIPAA. So Pulsera is HIPAA approved because you can videotape, but it's logged. So you log the user and the receiver. So that's why. So for example, FaceTime. If I FaceTime my medics, that is encrypted and secure from device to device, just like WhatsApp. So it's only between those two devices, but it's not HIPAA compliant because we don't log user receiver. So that's the only clicker thing. No one's ever been busted for that. I'll just put that out there. But that's why we got this through our fire department agencies, because it is HIPAA approved.
Yeah, I think for something that's free as an interim step until you could get something like Pulsera, any of those things are good options.
Hey, Don, just to answer a couple of your questions, is that this group is really focused around the medical directors for the largest cities in the United States. And if they happen to have fellows, we like to have them come on and be part of that in the future. We're talking about that's what that's about. And we can incorporate it. But I would love to have you. It looks like you're joining us every week. I love it because we'd like to have a surgical person here that knows what they're doing, right? As opposed to some other places I've been recently. And so really glad you're here. Anything you can report from your world, either in the blood realm or any of the other resuscitation issues like your calcium study or whatever, before we let you go, because I know you have to go. And I see Randy Schaefer's on as well. And then Mick Malloy, I'll be pitching to you over at Ireland after I finish with Don. He's got to get off pretty soon here. But go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I would just say that the military aspect of the fellowship that Dave runs is really fantastic and necessary. I think that those folks specifically and especially would benefit from at least observation in this forum, to have someone that they can reach out to when they hit that graduate level, and they're out on their own and running EMS service somewhere in a remote location around the globe. I think that those connections are invaluable, and finding a way to incorporate them into this would be fantastic.
Okay, that sounds great. Then David could make sure they're on. I think he's already planning to do that, if I remember correctly, right, David?
Right. That's when you talk about to Craig Cooley, it's a joint fellowship, military civilian. We're on it.
The other thing I would do, as I understand, this group is not unaccustomed to shameless.
Good. That sounds fantastic. All right. Are you guys hearing me okay? Because this has gotten to be a very unstable.
Don was trying to make a comment, Paul.
I was trying to make a shameless plug because it seems that this group is not unfamiliar with that. So June 20th of next year, we're hosting the National Whole Blood Summit Part 2 with a great group of folks. People on this phone call are part of the planning group, and would love to have great participation there. For what it's worth, University Hospital here in San Antonio has used its 10,000th unit of whole blood since the inception of the program.
What's the other one?
SBIN 2023.
Yeah.
Find it right there. And then the code is Miami 2023.
Okay. Miami.
Might be better.
Is it capital M?
I think it's all caps. Miami 23.
Okay. All caps Miami 23?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. This was a bad idea. All right.
Oh no, that doesn't work.
Donna, are you gonna have a flyer of some sort so we could push that out to folks?
Hey, Peter,
Yeah,
Hey,
there should be a save
I may
date
have-
going up right away.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Back to you, Paul.
Yeah, I'm gonna, Peter, you may have to capture me or take over for me because I'm from time to time, because it sounds like the something's wrong with the internet here. I have a really strong Wi-Fi signal, but it keeps going down, so I apologize.
Paul,
Hey,
I'm gonna be in transit here in a second. I'm running to where you're gonna be, where you are. So
Oh,
unfortunately,
okay.
yeah.
Got it. All right, got it. Well, then everybody can just have a free for all if I have to fall off. Okay, that kind of thing. Hey, so Don, you have to go, but thank you for being here with us. And Nick Simpson, one last thing, raised the issue about Good Sam vis-a-vis this. What Nick, go ahead. What was the question you were specifically asking?
Yeah, I'm just curious, in a place like San Antonio that has been a pioneer of various technologies, including Good Sam, how these two things work together or compete, or just what that's like.
Oh yeah, sure. So Good Sam, we use more on the dispatch side because you push that to the 911 caller, and it's more dispatch based. You can use it for other things like telemedicine stuff. I'll tell you that that's a really powerful tool. At the conference, in fact, we should get everybody a link to the conference. I was blown away by how the British Police Department uses Good Sam in a totally different way. So they are using it to interview witnesses and get statements from car crashes or crimes, and it's all transcribed, encrypted, and recorded. And then the witness then signs the transcription in real time. So the officer doesn't even have to go out there. So Good Sam can be used more from a agency out. Pulsera is more for its little niche is from the EMS or from the patient to other agencies, but it can be used, both can be used in that regard. We use Good Sam from dispatch, and we use Pulsera for patient initiated stuff. And we find both very helpful tools.
Okay. Let's switch. I've got to sort of do something on my phone here. Gotta mute myself. There you go. All right. Hey, what I was going to say is let's switch over to Mick. Tell us a little bit about both the issues that you use there in Ireland, and also specifically talk a little bit about the WhatsApp issues, which sounds like it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we have a fairly strict regulation for data control and HIPAA type stuff in the EU. And if data is being generated and shared to one of these online platforms, they have to guarantee that the servers reside within the EU. And that's caused some issue for some of these international companies because they can't be sure that there's no data shared over to the US. And EU rules are very, very strict on that. They found WhatsApp was breaching those rules. So our own data protection commissioner on behalf of the EU fined WhatsApp 250 million euros, which is, about $3 billion. Joke. It's only about $270 million, but it's still.
I know the joke. Well, it's a lot of money either way. It's a
lot of money. And there have been multiple sequential cases. So every time a new case comes up, it's another 5 million added in a different element of the case. And they've just 2 days ago announced here that they've had a massive data leak, and 500 million subscribers' records are now for sale online, which is a big concern because we've had quite a number of issues in the hospital where docs who were using WhatsApp for sharing medical records and things like that, they've been hijacked. Their accounts have been hijacked, and they've had to pay to get back the access to it. And we don't know how much data has been stolen off the accounts. So we've all been advised on a national perspective to move to this other app called Silo for sharing of common sensitive medical information. So that's the common one that we're using now at the moment. But again, it's another free access database, but it guarantees the restriction of the data within the European nation, European confines, and it's very strictly user protected and user credentialed. So you can't just set up an account. They have to verify who you are to allow you to have an account.
Interesting. Okay. Well, what can you say, right? Hey, so anything else to report out of Ireland before I switch over to some of the other folks?
Well, the usual stuff. We've had more storms in the last week, and now more towns that are now flooded.
Okay.
And we've had a bit of a warning that there's a triple threat storm coming with snow next week, which we rarely get snow, but snow in November is exceptionally unusual.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
wait to see how people drive in the snow. It's going to be crazy. It'll be wild. Yeah. So, well, okay, interesting. So, all right. So, as to quote David Eisenhower, Dwight David Eisenhower, our former president, things are more the same today than they ever have been in Ireland. So, but it's actually sounds like it's getting a little worse. So I'm sorry to hear that. We'll see. Well, keep in touch with us. Hope we can see you in a couple weeks. Hey, Randy Schaefer, if you don't mind me punching over to you, it's great to have you on again, as usual. And you and I actually in the past have worked with the Metro Chiefs and with the Eagles to find out, who's all is using blood nowadays. And is that list starting to grow a bit?
It is. And I see Clayton is on. He and I are going to take on Lifestream Blood Bank next week to convince them that this is a great idea to support blood in the LA County area.
For those of you guys who purchase blood directly from a distributor instead of rotating it from a hospital, how do you reconcile getting the blood basically used if you don't use it? In other words, the rotations that I know like David in San Antonio do, where you hold it for 2 weeks and you rotate it back to the trauma center, that I completely get. But what if you're buying it on the market from a distributor? Who do you give it to? Or, I mean, because obviously we don't want it to get wasted.
So just to be clear, we get it. We are loaned the blood from the blood bank. Okay. And then if we use it, we buy it. If we don't use it, we return the book to the library, so to speak. Right. And then the trauma center checks out that book and then uses it. And if they use it, they buy it. Right. So we're not really buying it. We're checking it out. So, and then the blood bank rotates it. So when you talk with your blood bank, talk to them about their process, and what they may be able to do is you check it out, you check it in, and they sell it to a hospital X, or they reprocess it, or whatever they're going to do with it.
And they like the terms, they do this every day in their world, is to have return privileges is what they like. Yeah. And they can turn around and sell it as a short date item. They do that every single day across the country. So some of it, then that's what I'm hopefully can help you out with next week, is using terminology that's familiar to them, that they do it every day in their world. Yeah. So we're going to start tackling that. I know Orange County Fire Chief is very interested. We've got a few challenges to overcome there, but we will get there. And I think last count, we had a great
and
kick.
That's Orange. Yeah.
Was 121.
Is that Orange County, Florida, or?
Sorry, California, Orange County. I forget there's so many orange counties in the country. Being a Californian, I always think of just California. So yeah, we're up to 121 agencies. We are tidying up a paper for publication that will have a map that will show where we started in 2016 up to the current date program implementation.
And this checking out, checking back in process can also allow hospitals, say, for example, critical access hospitals or rural hospitals that don't use blood very often, but though they need the blood because they're so far away, right? So that's another way that you can sell this process. Okay, so you can say, hey, we're going to do the check in, check out with EMS, but now you're going to develop a service line of checking in, checking out with these critical access hospitals or rural hospitals that allows them to start the blood, then throw them in a helicopter and send them forward. So they're going to add their service line. They'll be able to actually use their blood more effectively and sell more blood. That's what they want to hear. Sell more blood.
I feel like you were looking in on my computer today, because here's my draft publication for the case for whole blood in the rural hospitals to support EMS. I have to check my encryption.
Yeah, it's very encrypted of you. No, it sounds fantastic. So I think it's really great I got this, I'm really starting to sense a good, what's the right word, despite some of the hurdles we've had in recent weeks and months, that we're starting to get some good momentum back again, Randy. So thanks for all the great work you're doing. And can you want to report on a little bit from PivTech? I was on several calls this week, but we had a main call. You're on the steering committee, and so you want to tell them a little bit about some of the main things that we got rolling out now?
Yeah, so the Pre-Hospital Blood Transfusion Initiative Coalition, I got that out in one first try.
Or as we say, PivTech.
Yeah, PivTech. We had our first national kickoff just to gauge interest and to solicit folks that are interested in participating in the pillars. The two big pillars that we're going to start with are scope of practice, trying to tackle that issue for some consistency, and then reimbursement, looking at how different agencies are doing it. Ultimately, the plan is to go to CMS to see if we can get the blood product reimbursed. Can't fix EMS reimbursement across the board, but we can absolutely start pushing CMS to look at the product.
Randy, let me interrupt you for a second. I just want to make sure they understand when it says scope of practice, what's that about? Why is that? Not everybody may know, but the issue is that we're specifically focusing on EMS providers' scope of practice, number one. And number two is that what it refers to is that there are different state laws that allow you to do certain things. So a paramedic may not be allowed to use blood in, I don't know, Arizona or in Iowa or something and so on, or there may be certain regulations or tests or whatever. So part of it is that we're currently doing an assessment, thankfully through good cooperation with the National Association of EMS Officials, to define what is the scope of practice in your state, and particularly for paramedics with regard to this particular issue of giving blood products, not just whole blood or O positive, low titer, O positive, or red cells, just in general. So that's we're in the process of defining that. And then the point of that, of course, is to make sure that we, for research purposes and various other things, we have data sets, and more importantly, we can give people models of how to get it done or get legislation done in that state. Like here's an example in California, because that's what typically people do when they write state laws or regulations. They look for models from other places that are doing it, and they want to know how successful they are, and have there been problems, and that's it. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to make sure we understood where we're going with all that. Okay, so thanks.
Yeah, no, that was a great summary. And John Cromer is leading that pillar. So if you're interested in participating, you can reach out to him if you don't have his contact information. I know Paul and I do. And then the other pieces, the other pillars that we're looking at are strategic preparedness. We are fortunate to have BARDA as part of our committee, and they are, to their horror, realizing there was a major disconnect between pre-hospital and hospital and controlling the blood supply and knowing what's out there. So they are putting forth resources to help us get a better idea of how do we attack the blood supply from a strategic preparedness standpoint. And they're working with us to create a database, a map that will show the EMS agencies that are carrying pre-hospital blood, hospitals, particularly that are carrying low titer O positive whole blood, and some of the blood suppliers that are supplying it, so that we can start getting a better picture of what in the heck we have out there. It's very disjointed. So it's great to see that BARDA, and they're pulling in Asper Tracy to get our heads wrapped around that topic. And then we also have, as part of the coalition, have the education and outreach. Is how do we let folks know that pre-hospital blood is a thing? How do we support EMS agencies? How do we support blood centers to get information out there about the process and the products? So that's the latest happenings. If anybody's interested in the reimbursement arm, that's the one that I'm going to chair. It is a beast, and I think we're going to spend a little bit of time just understanding each other's worlds. It's been really surprising talking to the most senior blood supplier leaders in the country that have absolutely no idea who even their customer is going to be or what EMS is trying to achieve. So, and that all ties into reimbursement, right? Because they want to make money. So I'm going to help them understand how they can take care of patients and still make some money at it.
Yep. So what I'm going to do in the future, a couple of things. There's been some really good research out, but it's not yet published. It was presented in different places that are showing, for example, timed administration. You know, part of the people say, well, we don't need to do this because we're so close to the trauma center. Well, that's the issue in New Orleans, and they've had some great studies to show that, but it's not formally out there. But as we go along, I'm going to try to see if I have Juan Duchesne or Meg, preferably, or both, make a presentation of that, because those are important issues where people have their, where they want to kind of opt out of it. All right, and then hey, Angus, are you there by any chance? Angus Jameson? Angus, are you still there?
Before you go on to another subject, I just wanted to talk about this disaster thing that Randy was talking about.
Yes.
So if you build a whole blood program and you have blood everywhere, when you have an active shooter, you have basically brought blood from all your normal units right to the scene. For example, in Uvalde, when we had that shooting, we sent 20 units by helicopter to the hospital to augment their response. But we found out afterwards is we had 20 units in coolers on scene, right? That was just because the mutual aid ambulances coming in had blood with them. So you really can monopolize this program for disaster, active shooter, whatever, to increase your blood. And if the hospital needs the blood, well, the ambulance just goes to the hospital and drops off the blood and transfers using the app. And because you're an integrated blood system, you've now moved blood very quickly to the first receiving hospital of a disaster. So there's a lot of other hidden benefits to deploying blood in the field.
And that's kind of the spinoff of our scope of practice thing, because that has to do with, can you bring blood from one state into another? For example, if you're responding to Maine out of New Hampshire, or or vice versa, whatever it may be. So those are part of the things that we're looking at too. It's kind of complicated, and there's no federal regulations for this. That's why it's a cool thing to bring to the topic, because I think that's a very appealing subject to people. So thank you for bringing it on. So okay, I guess that's it. Anybody else want to pipe in or talk about it?
I was just going to say, in one of the things we've been facing here, so of course California, we love regulations, so we're hyper regulated, and we bumped into this in Orange County and a little bit with one of the hospitals we're looking to launch as a pilot. And what they're saying is that they want to do this as a formalized research study. And I'm saying I don't understand why we would do this as a formalized research study when I think it is an established standard of care that a patient in poorly compensated hemorrhagic shock, the standard of care is to give blood products. It doesn't, like in the trauma center, it's the very first thing we reach for when we have someone who's obviously bleeding and bleeding heavily. So why is it that we would need to do a randomized trial to say that doing it 10 minutes earlier in the field is a significant difference? Now, I'm not saying it's not worthy of research and publication and stuff, but I mean, literally as some kind of a prospective trial, to me, it seems a little bit ridiculous. But that's kind of where we are in California, with some of the people pushing back against us, saying, you need to prove to us that it makes a difference in the outcome of the patient to give it in the EMS setting versus giving it in the hospital. And to me, it's kind of like saying that when you do a cardiac arrest trial, you need to prove that cardiac arrest resuscitation is the same in a gas station as it is in a toy store. It doesn't, it's kind of crazy to me. It's something that is such an established standard.
Yeah.
It's not universal.
Well, let me give you a response that may be helpful, because I don't think you're going to get out of that. I mean, you can make a comment, but they're going to continue to do it. Two things I would do is that that are kind of important things to research right now are going to be, for example, our experience and most people's experiences. If you get to a scene in someone's pulseless, whether it's penetrating or blunt, okay, for the most part, we don't get them back. We haven't seen, if you arrive in their pulseless, that's it. On the other hand, there are a couple anecdotal cases, and David's got some there in San Antonio. And so we'd like to be able to say for better utilization, because I'd rather spread that blood around to other people. Right now, I think our criteria are too strict. I think we should be given to some people that have what looks like durable shock indexes, but they're clearly in trouble, that kind of thing. And so, anyways, the bottom line is that we could sit and talk offline, and several of us could give you some suggestions for what you put into that thing, but it'll be kind of trickery to help get it out there. That's all. Okay. So Peter, you're going to make a comment.
Yeah. So the comment I want to make is that I was in a meeting yesterday with a bunch of surgeons, and they're the ones who need the education. So if we're going to go to the hospital to ask for permission for whole blood, they're not like Don Jenkins. It's not everywhere is not San Antonio, where it's a military city. These surgeons are saying that we're right down the street. They don't believe in whole blood. They don't believe in TXA. So personally, I would say to you, Clayton, you could say thank you, but we don't take orders from you. And what happened here in South Florida is that a year after we initiated whole blood, now every trauma center has a whole blood refrigerator in the trauma bay, because they've seen the outcome. So the education has to span not just the lay people and the and Asper Tracy and all those people, but it has to span our surgeon colleagues in the hospitals.
Well, just to make the point that, Clayton, if you told your trauma surgeons, I'm sorry, we're going to put a 45-minute delay for you getting blood from the blood bank in your trauma bay. Sorry about that. They'd lose their mind. You're
you need to
blood
prove to me that 45-minute delay isn't going to impact patient outcomes before we'll change it.
Oh yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, sure it is.
Well,
yeah.
And Peter, just to give it, I would love to say that, but to some extent, that's like Johnny and Roy telling Rampart General that they will no longer take any orders from Dr. Brackett.
So I think one of the things that will be helpful is when talking to the trauma surgeons is that narrow focus of transport time. They got them to me in 20 minutes. And one of the things I've been trying to explain to them is, yeah, but you don't see all of the other pieces going on. They may not have been able to get off scene. They might not have been able to access the scene if it's a shooting. So trying to tease that more out of the story. And we had to do that with tactical combat casualty care in the military, was getting commanders to understand it's those first few minutes that we can't control is where the real efforts need to be made. So that's been something I've been trying to weave more into the story of that great video out of New Orleans. It's 8 minutes, but you can see everybody in the room doing this. But when you talk to the medic, he's like, well, there was a fire truck in front of us. There was a police car in front of us. We couldn't even get to the patient. So I think we need to start telling that story a little bit better or more of the context around it. I could be completely wrong.
The focus from the trauma surgeon in this presentation was on transport times. And you go, but what about the time it takes for us to get to the scene? And then we're staged because the scene isn't safe. And then we get to the patient and we've got multiple patients and we can't get an ambulance because it's on the wall. And all this stuff that happens upstream of loading the patient and going to your hospital. And that he had to acknowledge, I go, when was the last time you actually rode out in the field to see all these steps that we have to deal with? And that got kind of no response.
Well, that's the reason why I brought up that issue about once we get the data, that the really nice study they did where they showed that mortality increased with every minute is important. And that's a classic city where the trauma center is close, and yet they made a tremendous difference. So that's why I brought that up, because I want to bring that up, because that's the biggest obstruction that we're getting at this point in time. Okay, Peter, you're going to say something?
Yeah. I'm going to brag on Paul's department, Broward Sheriff and Jim Roach. They had a lady, a 40-year-old lady. She was pinned in her car after an MVA. Dr. Roach got a phone call saying she's pinned. She's going unconscious. We're going to have to amputate both of her legs. He said, no, don't do that. Give her 2 units of blood. That'll buy you some time. They gave her 2 units. She woke right up. They came, they opened up the car, they got her out, and this lady's alive today. And those surgeons would not have known any better that what we deal with in the field is very different than what they deal with at the hospital level. So that's another great example of what you were talking about and what Rick mentioned.
And Peter, we should mention on that case, she still has both of her legs. Great. So, but what was the joke I told you? I said later, if they had done that, she would have sued us. And then I'd said, but yeah, because she didn't get the blood instead. And they said, but then she wouldn't have a leg to stand on. Boom. Really bad joke. So anyway, but no, really, that's a great example, Peter. Thank you for reminding me about that. So very good. All right. So hey, by the way, when you get here, I'm up near the Versailles Road. Okay, and it's also valet parking only here. It's $40. Just be prepared. Okay. So, all right. There are. I'm going to join the folks. If you don't mind, I want to hop over to a couple of our folks that we haven't had on for a little while. We're talking about. Let's go to Mark Cohen in LA. Anything to report out of LA? I know you had that terrible crash in I-10. Can you imagine not having I-10 working for a while? So can you tell us about that and how if you guys got involved with that? Mark, are you there? Mark Cohen? Oop, maybe not. Mark Cohen,
Mark,
are you there?
you're muted. He's texting me. He's here.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, sorry that my AirPod just died, so I lost audio for just a few seconds there. What was the question?
Oh, I'm just saying, I just wanted to get a good report from LA, and particularly since that I can't imagine I-10 being blown up like that, right? And then how did you guys get involved with it?
So nothing from the EMS side, just a pure fire response. So nothing impacting sort of operations that night. The problem is that that is one of the busiest highways in the country, and goes right through downtown, right through the heart of our operations. So we've staged different resources now on both sides of that area. Because not only can we not get our resources across it traditionally, but we've got people going through the surface streets in a much different pattern. So what we're seeing as far as where we're getting called to is a little bit different, but hasn't caused any kind of significant patient impact. It's just a little bit of frustration. And supposedly they're going to have it rebuilt in 3 to 5 weeks because it's just damaged, but it doesn't have to get torn down. So I'm hoping that's going to be one of those optimistic things. They've already staged stuff in anticipation of earthquakes and have all the repair resources in place.
Yeah, by the way, just for the purpose of people who may not know what I'm talking about here, or we're talking about, is tell them briefly what happened.
So the 10 freeway, which is the main east-west that goes through downtown, underneath that area was basically 2 pallet yards. People have just developed these businesses in the unused areas on the freeways. And you can imagine years and years of very flammable materials. There's a couple auto repair areas, all kind of unlicensed, but recognized by Caltrans and other government agencies. Everyone just turning a blind eye. And arsonists decided to come in and light things on fire and basically had a major fire underneath some of the main support pillars of the busiest freeway in town. There's damage, but supposedly not to the structural rebar. But there's major engineering stuff going on right now to ensure that the repairs can be done and it doesn't have to be completely replaced. Be back up by next week. That would be very optimistic. But again, if it's just the superficial concrete and not the actual structural stuff, I suppose that's a thing. So, again, fire stuff, not so much EMS stuff, fortunately.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Terry Valenzuela said that Governor Newsom said that it's going to be up and running next week. Good luck with that. Right. He said, so I'll check with the governor to make sure that's the case. Okay. We'll see. But anyway, so anything else happening in LA while I got you on the horn?
Not a whole lot. I'm going to try to jump onto Clayton's coattails with the whole blood. Again, as he mentioned, we are subject to a lot more regulation than other systems, and I'm very jealous of all those other systems. But I feel like the demonstration, the research has been done enough to at least get the program up and running before any kind of formal study goes. I think Clayton and I are on the same page there. So hopefully the combined strength of our two agencies will overcome some resistance. But we don't have the best track record with that.
So while we're on I-5, let's travel up north to the next state, Oregon. And John can tell us a little bit about the comments that you were making. But thanks again, Mark. Okay, thank you. Great to have you on board with us. And then Jacob, if you're still on, I'm going to come to you in a second. But John, first of all, I may want to see if there's an infectious disease report from you. But can you talk about what you just put in the chat about the, the legislation?
Nothing new infectious disease besides the veterinary colleagues that have a really bad tick that's affecting wildlife as well. And so I think that yeah, TICK.
Where is that located? Where is that located?
I think it's in the eastern United States. We haven't seen it, but obviously wildlife stock and it's related to our entire environment. Regarding where Clayton's coming from,
the virus is what kind of virus is it?
Actually, I don't really know. It sort of came on my radar this morning as well.
Okay,
so.
well, we'll follow up on that later. I'm interested. Okay, because ticks get on people too, right?
Yeah.
So
it affects cows as well, and it's fairly significant to get into the human press. Regarding
go ahead. Cry over spilt milk then in that situation. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Regarding where Clayton's coming from, we actually had a good discussion. First of all, the Portland trauma scene, I would say 60 to 70% of our trauma physicians and providers are military or ex-military. So we don't have any selling issues here. Our landscape from a trauma point of view is very different than apparently in Southern California. The second one is that we were, for obvious reasons, studying the military experience, but I put it in 3 articles looking at whole blood versus component. This is old stuff to Randy, but for us that are new on the scene, we basically showed that whole blood is superior to component therapy. There is one EMS study, I believe it's Brill et al., that actually has the preliminary results on the Southern Surgical Association that basically shows the right trend. Everything is going down. There isn't one piece of data that I could find that showed whole blood was inferior to lactated ringers or any other component therapy. I couldn't find anything, and I'd be interested to see what Dave and Randy think, because they've been doing this for a while. Back to you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think for most of us who are all there that it's the right. There's so many reasons why other things are bad. What I may do is down in the future, one of the controversies that are still there, I don't understand it, is people still hung up on some of the old data on TXA and not up to date. And there's a nice little study that just came out of Pittsburgh too that came out and it said everything we've been saying, which is the larger dose up front, first half an hour or so, and after maybe an hour, you start not considering doing it because there'll be more complications. That's because there's a big study that came out of UCSF recently that showed that. So it's very confusing. People are, whatever. But I got to tell you, the work you guys did, Marty's paper, where he very thoughtfully up front looked at the 2 grams versus the 1+1 versus placebo, was just elegant and brilliant, and it really helped set the tone for all this. So thanks a lot. Anything to add on that, Randy or David, responding to what John said?
Oh, I think about all these studies and in Clayton, I think we've talked about this, but even going back to the 70s when whole blood was what we did, there was 0 RCTs or studies that showed taking it whole and breaking it down to 3 parts was beneficial. It was purely a cost-driven decision.
Right.
So all this push for we need RCTs, we need perspective, I refer them back to the 70s where we made the decision to switch, which is that study doesn't exist.
By the way, I was going to throw out the fact that when we were talking about the scope of practicing, one thing I left out, which is along these lines, is that some states, say, for example, might allow you to have O negative in the field, right? Whereas, because it's the universal donor, now we know that the universal donor is 75% of those O positive cases that have low titer. So those are things that are, I think, helpful, because everything was based on type and cross or O negative in the past. And so I think that was the big breakthrough, learning about low titer components and all that. And two things that are good. Obviously, it's easier to give one thing, and number two, it's you're giving less citrate to somebody that way, therefore less impact on the calcium situation, which we're still trying to kind of work out, how we're going to do that one. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on that. If not, let me pop over then to Jacob in Denver. Hey, so what's the latest there?
Couple updates. I mean, I as Peter alluded to, I think there's more and more people in Colorado starting to move towards Pulsera. I know some individual agencies are, and then the state is currently looking at it around kind of family reunification and hospital coordination. And so I think just this morning, it's like the third time I've heard it come up. So that'll be something we're looking into. Stein sent out a survey a couple of weeks ago around sedation, follow-up doses. We're working on kind of tweaking our Denver Metro protocol. Somewhat interestingly, in October, ACEP kind of reaffirmed their stance with a statement, kind of think end of October, around hyperactive delirium with severe agitation. And then I actually just saw this yesterday, released a clinical policy talking about issues with sedation, mostly in the hospital environment, the emergency department environment. They mention pre-hospital, and then like their very first exclusion is this is not for the pre-hospital environment, but they're speaking and commenting on a little bit of what we've been doing in Denver Metro, which is the synergism and actually combining medications. So using droperidol and midazolam. Their paper was really preferentially droperidol first. So that was interesting to see. They specifically didn't mention hyperactive delirium. They just kind of said severe agitation. And along that line, and kind of the last thing I'll say is I was actually just forwarded a bill yesterday to look at that. Excited delirium was gone in 2021. I think California just passed a law that it can't be on a coroner's report. They're doing that in Colorado, but then also wanting to ban every other term like hyperactive delirium that could sort of fall in as a surrogate. And again, it was just the first time that I saw it, but I think it's a little bit interesting in the setting of what ACEP released, then the clinical policy, and then this bill. So that's about all I have.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing when you get this situation where that they start making legislation around the practice and all that, and other specialties weighing in on our practice. So, but it is what it is. Hey, so let's see. So that's great for the report. I thank you. I hope you're having fun working out, getting used to working the system and et cetera, and have fun. That's always actually an interesting thing. I may have you guys come on, like you and Mark. Like, what was it like being the medical director? The new medical director. What was your first year like, and what lessons learned? Besides getting your CV prepared for the next job, right? That you feel like sometimes, right? No, but I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to do at Eagles this year, if you don't mind doing it. And by the way, so everybody knows and put it in your calendar, we'll be meeting June 10th through the 15th, I think it is, this year in Fort Lauderdale. So start preparing. In fact, I'm going to start asking people for topics early on, if you don't mind, and because I just want to get that done and get that out of the way, so to speak, and instead of the last minute stuff. But it's good because then you can plan things. And the other thing is, make sure we take your fellows this year. That has always been such a great component to it when people brought their fellows. So that it added so much, I think, to me, and they had a great time. They got to know us. You got to know each other. And so it's great for them setting off onto their new adventures, et cetera. So if you would, that just want to make sure I made that commentary before we went further and all that. Okay, let me see. Ben, are you still on, Ben Launer? Still there, Ben? By any chance? It looks like you are. Yes. Yeah. Anything to report out of, where are you walking around? In the airport?
Oh, it was so loud with the siren, so I'm just outside in the garage. But no, nothing new to report. The blood stuff's very helpful. We encountered a lot of kind of similar opposition, and I think not because of surgeon stubbornness, but because of the shock trauma black hole or whirlpool effect, meaning that everything gets drawn into there and everything gets better. So it becomes a very shock trauma centric viewpoint. But I wanted to emphasize, even in Baltimore, it is even a 3-minute offload time by the time you get to shock trauma to get somebody upstairs. So we've been using a lot of the data from the Eagles discussion. The whole blood stuff is very preliminary. We have another jurisdiction, Howard County, that has onboarded it. So it's great stuff. And I think our barrier will be more logistic, but looking forward to onboard blood, but nothing new since the last time we talked.
Okay, thank you so much. Then let's run up I-95. Let's see, is Glenn Asada there in New York? As you are every week. I think you get the award for I need to give you the Luke Gehrig Award, because for never missing a meeting, right? Like him not missing a game.
Hey, everybody. Yes, I am here. Nothing major to report, luckily. Our protests have been pretty well controlled, where there's been some slight things, but nothing major. We're all prepared like everybody else for any civil disobedience. We have extra units out there with PD as well. Major budget crisis was announced yesterday by our mayor because of the migrant budget. Apparently some billions of dollars going to that. So all city agencies were told that we have to do a 5% cut. They're not going to have a NYPD class for the next 5 classes, so the next year.
Wow.
So this will be the first time that since the Dinkins days as mayor, we'll have a police force of less than 30,000 people. For the fire department, initially, it looks like there's going to be no overtime authorized. That's the first piece. We don't know what else is coming. But apparently over the next year, again, there'll be another 5% and 5%. So this is the first announcement. I haven't gotten anything from our budgetary commissioner as to what steps we have to take, but it's going to be painful. But luckily, so far, we're okay. The holiday season's coming up with the Thanksgiving Day parade next week, and then the tree lighting, and then Christmas, and then Times Square. All that is always a problem for us. But we got through the marathon on full budget at the time, last 2 weeks ago. But so that's where we are now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go hit a little westward of you and go to Doug Kupis. Since he's, although he's not the Commonwealth Medical Director anymore, he's still got Medical Director over NAEMT. Anything to report there?
Hey, Paul. Let's see. I guess NAEMT. The biggest news is that Pam Lane, who was the executive director for 18 years, is no longer with NAEMT, and I can, I guess, report for anybody that is aware of that. The good news is that, when somebody steps out like that after that much history, you worry about, loss of
continuity.
Just the memory, that kind of thing. But the folks that are interimly picking things up are exceedingly qualified. One of them worked as an executive director of an association in the past, and a lot of people there do have that knowledge. So I think that if you have places that are doing courses, using the NAEMT courses, doing things with NAEMT, hopefully it'll be as seamless as possible whenever there's an executive director change.
Status on the textbook?
Pardon?
What's the status on the textbook? What's the latest?
Oh, the AMLS textbook?
Yes.
Yes. So the AMLS textbook is in its what's coming back now are just sort of the final Jones and Bartlett mock-ups of chapters where all of the figures and photographs and sort of thing are in there. The language is all set. There's a little tweaking of getting permission for some of the pictures and that sort of thing. But the goal was originally to have it out around the March area of 2024, and I think that that's on target. I think the other thing about that is that in the past, sometimes the textbook and the course material changes did not come out simultaneously. So this time they are timed to have the course material changes and the textbooks come out simultaneously. There are some testing going on of the courses, but other than that, the full package will come out in the spring. I was also interested in the discussion about the care by EMS of the agitated patient. I know people get up on, what's gone on with ASEP and hyperactive delirium and their, council vote to rescind their, not only rescind, but, sort of bury the previous paper that had used the term excited delirium. I will point out that, the 5 organization 2021 position statement of NAEMT, NAEMSP, and NASEMSO, and the educators, et cetera, has been a document that has been helpful to many, I think. And so I think if you're running into issues, you might want to look to that. I think there's been a lot more talk and turmoil around some of the ASEP work, but that, don't forget that there is an NAMSP, NAEMT, NASEMSO position statement from 2021 that seems to have been helpful to some.
Yeah, and if so, let's just get that. I'm always big on reiteration, the 3 R's of education: reiteration, repetition, and redundancy. And actually, so part of it would also be for retention purposes, maybe sending a copy out that to us, either on this link or maybe send it to Jim Augustine and have him. He's on 4th shift today. So
yeah, I'm happy to. I don't know if anybody that's I'm sort of on cell phone today and transit, so I'm not in a position to be able to bring it up and post it right away. But probably others that will do it before we stop talking.
Yeah, but I just send it by email. Send it to Jim. He'll send it because not everybody else on the line here. I want to get it out to the group.
All right. Okay. Good. Yep. I'm happy to send.
Yeah, take your time. It's not urgent. It's just like, hey, while you're at it, we're talking about it. Get it out there again, just in case someone did miss it, or there are new people on the line and weren't aware of that, and all that kind of thing. Right? How's that?
Yep.
All right.
And in the Pennsylvania news, as you said, I'm not a state official anymore, but in the Pennsylvania news, just this week, the replacement for the former state director for the Bureau of EMS has been made. So Anthony Martin is the new person from the Reading area, paramedic with an MBA, and that is out there.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for your report. It's good to see you. Thanks for being on, and do really appreciate you filling this in and all that. Let's see who else. Joe Holly, let's jump down to you. I'm just going down the list alphabetically. So, Joe, anything you can report out of Tennessee? You always say you don't, but you're always doing great stuff there. And then, if you don't mind, come on and do a presentation for us again about airways. Okay, that would be a kind of a cool little thing, right? Your latest work in that arena. Okay.
Sure, I'll be happy to, Paul. Good morning, everybody. And there actually is nothing of great import to discuss, although there was an interesting article that was making the rounds on some of the social media discussion sites related to the physiology of heads-up CPR. And it was interesting in that the way the study was conducted showed that heads-up CPR actually made flow in the brain, et cetera, much worse. And when you got into the details of the study, they actually did all the stuff that we've been preaching for a couple of years not to do, like put the head up first and then start CPR.
Wow. That doesn't work.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, it was, if you don't understand the physiology very well, it's easy to jump on that study and say, oh, well, there we go. It just shows that it doesn't really work well at all. And it's interesting the number of folks that are quick to do that without really understanding the the details behind the study. So I
Yeah,
just
and
I
they-
throw that out to
they
caution
probably-
everybody to watch for that.
They probably haven't been to the lab either to see it right in front. It was interesting because I was talking to, I think it was the Tulsa fire chief who was always having button heads with Jeff Goodlow from time to time. And he said once he went to the lab, he became a big believer. And then he said, wow, this is interesting. And, but it was funny. And it sounds like and Jeff and he get along really well right now. So that's good. That's a good thing as well. So, okay. So thanks.
Can I comment on that? Can I comment on that?
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
Dr. Andy, is that you? Are you in a traffic? It took you so long to get down here.
Yeah, this is major traffic here, unfortunately.
Yes.
But what I wanted to mention, I'm glad Joe mentioned that because it's really sad to see the state of affairs where people would do what I call a hit job. And then when I actually sent out a tweet to the first author on that study, and he tried to respond back to me, but it's really unfair to do what he did, and he's a smart guy. He shouldn't have done what he did. And then for the other smart people, quote unquote, on the internet, colleagues of ours, to read the tweet and then just 100% agree with him without reading the paper. It's really shameful what's happening, and that someone could actually put out a publication that was accepted by the Journal of Resuscitation. Shame on the editor for accepting that publication. So that's my 2 cents. Back to you.
Completely agree, Peter. It clearly seemed to be very self-serving to me as well, and I thought it was not done in the interest of better science.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I won't get into it right now. Just because this is a recorded thing, but there is clearly an issue there. That's why it was done. It was and it's a conflict of interest issue. So for other reasons, which I will get into, but so I mean, that's it. But the thing is, it's all going really well. It's going in the right direction, and stuff we're seeing, particularly down in Oklahoma, that those latest reports are just phenomenal. So it's really kind of cool. So, all right, good. So let's go on and let's see who else I got to. Where's my attendee list here? A lot of people are still hanging in here. Thank you, everyone. Moving down the list. Okay, thanks, Joe. John, Kevin, Babe, anything you want to pipe in about since you're next on the list? Then I'm coming to you, Lakshmi.
Nothing on this end. Just enjoy the discussion.
All right, good. Let's if you get a chance, if you got time around 3 o'clock today, want to give me a call?
I actually won't. I'll have a car full of middle school and high school kids at that point.
Okay, or call me tomorrow, same time, same station, or whatever. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks a lot. Anytime. Okay, Lakshmi, anything happened out of Atlanta?
Hey, Paul. Nothing specific. That sounds like my life at 3 o'clock as well. But we are trying to, kick off our whole blood program, and the discussion with Eagles has definitely been helpful. Thankfully, we are in one trauma hospital town right now. So, and they are on board, which helps.
Oh, good. Yeah. Who's the head of surgery there nowadays? I used to know David Feliciano really well, and his wife, but who's there
it's
now?
Elizabeth Benjamin.
Oh,
she
okay,
used to
cool.
work with Nicole Bassan out west, and she moved here.
Yeah. Okay, got it. All righty. So let's move on down. Oh, good. James Augustine. Good. You're able to join us. Tell us what's the latest on your end. Anything out of IAFC, IFF, or anything out of Lee County?
IFC's going very well and recuperating at the end of their 150 year. Nothing on the IFF side. Lee County, we're working on mobile integrated healthcare, and I appreciate all of you who have contributed to our general knowledge of how to develop a mobile integrated program. We may have some new programs now we're doing, and I just came off of a call with our local shelters who have found great reason to keep their people on site now and are getting grants so that they don't have to remove all of their medical needs to the hospitals. And during season, our hospitals just simply aren't capable of managing all the patients we're bringing to them. So getting a lot of pressure to develop mobile integrated healthcare programs, Paul, it's a good time. Thank you.
Yeah. And the good news, we've learned a lot from everything. That session you guys ran last year at the Eagles, and then we got to make sure we get that worked out. In June was fantastic. So I hope that all helps and everybody learns a little bit. Even on these meetings, I just learned a little bit every day and every time. So it's great when they're together. So thank you. Libby Char, are you still out there? And what time is it? What time? Oh yeah, you're doing better because it's your timing got better, right? In terms of what is it? What time is it now?
Yeah, so I don't have to start the conference at 5:30 anymore. Now I get to sleep till 6:30.
Okay, great. So what's the latest in your realm out in Hawaii?
Not a lot. We're still working on the ambulance contracts for Maui and Kauai. There was an award and it was deemed, somebody challenged it, and so they're kind of going to rebid the whole thing. So ambulance service for Maui and Kauai are sort of in flux right now.
Yeah.
The other thing we're working on is, we have state standing orders for the paramedics, but we actually don't have state standing orders for at the EMT level. And so trying to write that in. So I'm going to do some R&D and borrow some other people's protocols and try and see how they're doing it. Because I like how it has the EMT protocols and the MICT, where the paramedic protocol is all in the same. But believe it or not, we don't have protocols for EMTs.
I was going to tell you, I was on a conference call the other day, and I was on this conference call the other day, and the person was referring back to the Eagles and say how they have the biggest R&D program going on, and the rip off and duplicate thing. So it was pretty funny. It's gotten to be kind of they said that's what they want. That's what they were aspiring to be, which is great. So we have competition out there. It sounds like, or upcoming competition. Now this has been great. So thank you so much. Let's see, the next person on my list here. We got played. We talked to everybody there so far. Moving on down the list here. So, Terry, anything out of Tucson that you can report to me?
No, not at all. Everything's is good here. Oh, by the way, everybody make sure to look at the chat where I posted the information about the I-10.
Okay, what can you give us a 30-second nutshell what it says?
Sure. It says our timeline has changed, Newsom said at Thursday's press conference, crediting those who have been working to repair the damage for speeding up the repair. And it says it'll be open by Tuesday. Governor Newsom said it Thursday afternoon.
Okay, good. Thanks for keeping us up what's going on there with the governor. I really appreciate that. All right.
God, do people not read anymore? Do people not read anymore?
Or they don't watch TV or whatever. That's right.
Okay.
Well, no,
Okay.
yeah, I'm interested in that because I say, do people not talk to each other anymore? Is what I say, because of everybody texts. Sometimes I'll go back and forth texting people over 5-6 minutes, and it probably would have taken 1 minute just to get on the phone and say, "Hey, what's a good time for you tomorrow?" Right? So it's it reminds me of that scene out of what was it, Indiana Jones, where the guy is got the sword and he's shimmying around, he's making all the moves like a ninja kind of guy, and then Indiana just shakes his head and just shoots him, right? So it's kind of reminiscent of that as an allegory for me. All right, well, listen, thanks then. Let's move on to hey, Bill, anything to report out of either state health department or your realm in that area in California?
California is quiet right now. No earthquakes, no wildfires, no atmospheric rivers, and Gavin is going to be out there digging and get the the freeway opened in 5 days. So we're all set there. COVID is flat and going down. So we do not see epidemics and no ticks currently in California.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, before I sign everybody off, Lechmi had a question. Maybe raise it next week. Well, not next week, so we're gonna skip next week. But the week after, about using a bi-level CPAP. Is that what you're calling it? And what does that mean by a bi-level CPAP? So we all understand. Is it like BiPAP, or is it different from that?
It kind of behaves like a BiPAP, but it's this device called FlowSafe. And it came across my desk, and essentially they're not setting the pressure, but they're adjusting the pressure with the flow. So it kind of behaves like a BiPAP, so to speak. So it seems like it would be easier for people to use, and the adoption would be relatively, but then again, you're increasing your flow level all the way up to, it tells you like what flow level you need to increase it to achieve an IPAP of X and a EPAP of X kind of thing. And you're able to set the EPAP, but you increase the flow to achieve an IPAP. So I was just wondering if anybody was using this FlowSafe 2 device, just to see what their experience was.
Yeah. So here's my
Yeah,
suggestion.
but I'm
Oh,
sorry. I'm sorry,
that.
Paul. The answer
Yeah,
to
give
that
me a
question is Tucson Fire has been using it for 20 years. It's a great piece of equipment.
They've been using FlowSafe specifically.
Well, is it by O2? That company?
Mercury.
Okay, well, O2 has had a CPAP device that's a small plastic thing that's cheap and regulates CPAP with the O2 flow for many, many years. I first saw it at an Eagles meeting.
Well, so this actually allows you to provide a higher inspiratory pressure using the flow, even though you set your expiratory pressure at, say, 5 or 10, whatever it is you set it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like a good device, but I was just surprised that there was not a widespread adoption. So I was just wondering if outside of Georgia, people were using.
Why don't you do this, since you don't have a conflict of interest and you're just another person? Why don't you do some homework on it, do a quick 5 or 10 minute presentation? Maybe you show us next time, then better feedback from everybody, let's say in 2 weeks, if you could get on and remind me, just want to put the agenda together and make sure I include it. And give us a presentation, then we'll have people react to it and get statements like Terry had, and we'll see if we could differentiate that from the O2 product then. Okay. And maybe to be part of your job that in the meantime. So
I'd be happy to do. Thanks.
All right. One last thing before we let everybody go and wish everybody a great Thanksgiving is John Jenkins and David want to remind us that they're going to have another blood summit. Are you guys calling it the Whole Blood Summit? It'll be on June 20th, which will be a few days after we get back from Florida. We should be able to pop over there, hopefully, to the Hill Country. I love that's a nice little. I love that venue over there, that hotel in the Hill Country. So it's kind of nice. So, but event. Anything else you want to say about that, David or Don?
Come see us. We'll have a blast.
Okay, good.
And that's a good venue to bring your family, by the way, because it has the water park, so that's a good family-friendly place.
Yeah, and the general manager there's a friend of mine. They're great people. They do a good job there. So nice place. All righty, but let's remind us about that again next week. That kind of thing, if you don't mind, and we'll see what's the word. We'll just we'll continue on the zone, but remind people. Then we'll try to remember also that we're going to have a the Eagles will be meeting down the line here in June, and start thinking about what you want to present there. All right. With that, and by the way, I think hey, can you send a little flyer out on that somewhere, David? And maybe send
it's in the chat. In the chat, and I'll send it to you.
Yep. Okay, good. Yeah. So Hyatt Regency Hill Country Resort and Spa on June 20th. So is it just for one day, by the way? So if I made a reservation and just stay overnight on the 20th and then leave if I wanted to on the 21st? I mean, I'm sorry, I'd come in on the 19th and then leave at the end of the day. Is it a one-day conference?
Don answered, but it looks like it's one day.
Okay, yeah, that's all it says is June 20th. That's why I was wondering. Okay, with that, it's exactly 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, and so it's time for us to depart. So thank you all very much for time. And I am so grateful for all of you. That's the thing. I'm grateful for it because this has been a real special treat to have this kind of camaraderie and people looking out for each other. And so I can't be grateful for that. I do have to, there's maybe one more thing as my grandchild, but other than that, I really appreciate this group as being one of my favorite things on the planet. So thank you all very much. All right. See you later.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Paul, we're thankful for you, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, good. That's part of the whole thing is I know that. And that's what makes it so good that we're thankful for each other. And that. So thank you. That's good. All right. See you later then. I'm going to head off to my next meeting.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving too.
Happy Thanksgiving.